Hey, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sayela. I hope you're having a great day. Today we're going to take a look at day 4 of the development updates for Pantheon with a focus on how kill credit and NPC spawning will work in the spring 2026 update. Before we jump into things, if you find my content helpful, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel for future content. You will also find me live on Twitch from Monday to Friday around 7:30 p.m. Eastern. All right, let's get into it. So combat and progression update, part 4, kill credit and NPC spawning. I know this is a big topic for a lot of people, so let's get into the nitty gritty. I do like the picture they have for the update today. It's a cool little totem looking picture. All right, a significant focus of our combat and progression update is to make each individual fight feel more meaningful and engaging. As we've discussed over the past few days, that means that the time to kill for most NPCs will be increasing, and sustainability and resource management will be more important in combat than they are today. Solo players and small groups will find that they have much more content available to them, while full groups will remain adequately challenged as they push into the most dangerous and rewarding parts of the game. I think these are all good things. I do question if there will be enough content for full groups with this change, but we'll see. I only say that because, like right now, I use Hellnir, for example. You could have a group at the entrance, you could have a group a little further in, then there's ghosts, and then you keep going deeper and deeper, but will there be enough camps to sustain full groups if they're intending them to be more deeper into the dungeons? I guess that'll be a question to see. I mean, I guess if they're planning to do it based on con, like what the mobs con, maybe a lower level group could be at the entrance with the full group. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see how that plays out. But those are questions I do have with how that will play out, if they're just intending groups to be deeper in dungeons or content, right? So we'll see. With the upcoming changes, our vision is that players will be much more likely to team up and form groups naturally, since more players will be hunting in the same areas more consistently. However, based on what we have seen so far during early access, it is entirely possible for too many players to be hunting in an area and to end up coming into conflict over NPCs as a result. These conflicts end up creating a burden for our customer service team and GM staff, in addition to frustrating players who are simply trying to play the game and progress. That's a fair point. Don't disagree on that. Most of the time, conflicts are not intentional. There's a lot going on within our gameplay, and sometimes it can be easy to miss that someone else has pulled the NPC that you have set your sights on. However, it happens consistently enough that we have decided to try a different approach for determining kill credit. Okay, let's see what's going on with that. First to engage. In the combat and progression update, we are transitioning the majority of our NPCs to a first to engage formula instead of the current most damage done approach for determining experience rewards and loot rights. Here's what that means and how it will work. When you attack an NPC, its nameplate will change from gray to red, signifying that you and your group currently have ownership and loot rights for this target. I do like that change, and the reason I like that change is, in one of my previous videos, I used the example, what if there's a rogue laying in the same area as the group and they don't realize that rogue is there? They go to engage, but the rogue gets that first hit and tags the NPC. So this is a really good example of how this will help the group determine to make sure that the target is tagged for them. So I do like that change. There will be a system of upkeep to track whether you continue having the ownership. In order to maintain ownership of the NPC, you or your group will need to continue doing a minimum amount of damage to it within a reasonable time frame. If you stop doing damage to the NPC for too long, its ownership will reset, and another player or group will be able to gain ownership. Note, our goal is to not make this upkeep parameter overly strict, but primarily to avoid situations where contested targets like named and bosses aren't kited around in circles endlessly while waiting on a group or guild to arrive 5 minutes later. I like this change too. I could see this happening. Like somebody goes into a zone, hey, this high priority target's up that we want to kill. I'll keep it busy and enough damaged that it's tagged to me for you guys to get here. So I do like that they're putting these type of restrictions in. I think the real question will be, they do make a point to say that they're not going to be overly strict. So, I mean, subclasses could potentially stay above those parameters depending on what they are, but we'll see. I don't see a whole lot of that happening right now, I don't think, so hopefully that's not a huge issue, but the player population has also dwindled quite a bit over the past probably 6 months since what it was compared to what it was during the earlier months of early access, so maybe it was a bigger issue then, I'm not sure. If you place yourself in a situation where the NPC has no path to reach you or respond to your attacks, then the ownership will be reset after a short period of time, and the next person or group to attack it will gain ownership. I like that one too. And to be honest, if you are trying to keep a mob tagged and the NPC can't path you, for me, that's technically an exploit. And the developer should probably fix that, but at least they're putting in some restrictions to prevent that from happening, so I don't see any negatives with that one. Some NPCs, such as those involved in dynamic events, world bosses, and other special targets, may still use the most damage done system to determine who gets experience and loot rights. It is our desire to have targets in the game that are highly and truly contested to give groups and guilds exciting opportunities to flex and vie against one another. However, most NPCs will use this new first to engage approach. Bosses are like this now, so I don't really have a huge issue with this. What I do have an issue, not necessarily an issue, but concern, is the statement of to give guilds and groups exciting opportunities to flex and vie against one another. That to me sounds like it could potentially create toxic environments, if I'm being honest. I think they have stated in the past they do plan to instance some content. I'm hoping that raid content will be high on that list. I'm okay if there's a couple targets that are open world and whoever gets it first gets it or whatever. But in my opinion, world bosses like that should have a higher spawn rate so that they should have a higher spawn rate, but maybe a lockout of so many days. So if there's guilds up there that want to kill the target, they should have that opportunity. I don't think locking gear behind, oh, we have this big open world boss, but there's only going to be a couple guilds that get a chance to kill it, because they either are better coordinated, they have higher damage, more skilled players. I don't think that creates a good environment, honestly. That's kind of why games like EQ and WoW instance their raid content outside of a few world bosses. So, I mean, if that's what you like, that's great, but I feel like majority of players that raid, they don't want to waste their time. So I think instancing that content is the way to go. And again, if they have a couple targets, I just think they really need to think about the player perspective for that. But anyway, we'll see where they go with that long term. Then this new approach should help reduce the number of unintentional conflicts that come up over content in the game. When combined with longer time to kill, we believe it will make it easier for groups hunting in the same area to coexist effectively. Okay. Mostly good things there. Just that one little concern with it's not really, and again, we'll see how it plays out. It's more concern about the wording and what they're trying to do, but we'll see. Named NPC spawn types and spawn rates. Two of the frequent complaints we hear about content in our game are the scarcity of named NPCs and the subsequent difficulty players have in progressing their character gear via adventuring, and the boredom that can come with when named NPCs are always single location spawns. We're going to wait to talk about specific itemization and loot updates in a later dev diary. For now, we want to focus on named NPC spawn types and spawn rates. Regarding spawn types in the combat and progression update, expect to see a larger and more balanced variety in the way named NPCs can spawn. Okay. Classic placeholder-driven camps will continue to exist, with higher chances for the named NPCs at these camps to appear than today. Yeah, I don't really have a huge issue with how it is today, per se. I think most names, with the exception of ones that are meant to be more rare, spawn fairly frequently. Typically, the issue is less about how often they appear and with how low priority the desirable drops from those mobs are. So you can camp a certain mob for weeks or months and still not get the item you want because that's the item they deemed highly desirable from that name, so they made the drop rate extremely low. So I see that to be more of an issue than the current spawn rates, but I'm not sure I definitely really agree with that one per se. But dynamic or event-driven name spawns only at night while it's raining, etc., will become more frequent. I don't have an issue with that. I think it adds a little bit of extra depth to the game too. And I think there's some events that are already like that. But we'll see. The raining one is a little bit concerning maybe because you can't control that one as much as only at night per se, but we'll see. Zones and point of interest will feature more spawns that can be specifically triggered by players with the appropriate actions or items, such as the Burning Banshee in the Smoldering Trenches or the Grand Illustrator in Black Rose Keep. Yeah. I don't have an issue with those, but the items to get them can sometimes be quite rare. And then the issue becomes they're tradable. So if somebody gets one and don't want it, they start selling them at exorbitant prices, which don't necessarily reflect the items that drop from said mobs. But yeah, those maybe should be bind on pickup. That way, if somebody doesn't want anything, maybe there's less incentive for them to take said items, but we'll see. And it also depends how they enable that. If it's just going to be through dropped items or whatever, I mean, there's other ways they can do that too. So it could go either way. I don't have necessarily an issue with that. It just depends how they implement more of them going in the future. I don't want them to overly complicate this stuff either because it doesn't add to the game. A larger number of named NPCs will be available in general, many of which will have a chance to spawn from any NPC in thematically appropriate areas. This one is important, so let's make it a bit clearer with examples. Zither the Foul in Helner Cave currently has a few different spawn points, but imagine if Zither could spawn at any one of the Drawn Ratkin spawn points in all three of those 3 rooms and the hallways that lead to them. Nidar and Lydra could have a chance of spawning from any of the Outcast spawn points in Mad Run or any of the Spider spawn points in the Hatchery. I don't have an issue with that. I think it's nice that they can have multiple placeholders. Then you're not constantly waiting on that one particular spawn to respawn every 15 to 18 minutes or whatever that respawn in that particular area is. I think it's nice if they can have multiple placeholders or just have a random chance to spawn off any specific name NPC that's the placeholder for it. So yeah, I don't see an issue with that. I think that's a positive change too. More guaranteed spawns of the named NPCs on longer respawn timers with more complex pathing. Along with introducing new named NPCs and a greater variety of spawn mechanics, we are increasing the chances for many of our current named NPCs to appear. Yeah, I think that's a good thing. I don't want them to make it too common though, and the only reason I say that is gearing too fast is also a downside to gearing too slow. If you get something too fast, you're going to get bored and then there's no incentive to go back. So I think there has to be a happy medium with that one. And maybe they'll kind of balance that again with how frequent certain items drop or whatever. So we'll see. All of this goes hand in hand with the tuning changes we are making to all of our NPCs, and so smaller or less optimal groups will have a chance to succeed against these targets at the intended level, although many of them will still be very demanding fights. Yeah, that's nothing wrong with that. Our hope is that the combination of these changes will make your adventures more fun and exciting by giving you the chance to encounter and defeat these named opponents without having to participate in multi-day camps to see them. Yeah, and again, I have no issues with that. I just don't want stuff to be so frequent that it diminishes the effort to get certain items. If you make something too frequent, then is it really a named? Or is it just another NPC that can potentially spawn with that happens to be a name? If that makes sense. Tomorrow we will be discussing changes to our adventuring experience curves and level progression that will be coming in the combat and progression update. Awesome. I can't wait to read that tomorrow and see what that's all about. Overall, I think the update today has some really positive changes, some that are a little bit questionable, or I guess it's kind of a wait and see. Oh, I won't say questionable. It's more of a wait and see to see how it's implemented and what it looks like on live servers when that gets into the game in the spring of 2026. So, but with that said, that brings us to the end of today's Dev Diary. If you found this content helpful, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I will be covering the next few days. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we will see you in game or on stream. Have a good day. Bye.